we have inside the studio of WinFM no other than introduce yourself to the general public.
My name is Grace Richardson, and I am this licensing agent for the Eastern Caribbean Collective Organization for Music Rights in St. Kitts and Nevis. But also, I am a songwriter. I produce my own song recordings. I'm a musician. I'm a singer. I'm an author. I'm a cartoon artist, etc., etc. So I have a lot of copyright works.
So you're in this thing not just only one way,
No. Fully invested.
Fully.
Okay, I forgot to mention music publisher as well.
Yes.
Fully invested.
So I know Echo been trying to establish its operation in St. Kitts for quite some time.
Yes.
And it's been a challenge, and to see that it reached to a stage where it would look like it was going to be yes. And then I saw an article a couple weeks ago pertaining to Echo being operating here. Mm-hmm. So can you enlighten us, because we spoke to Gian from...
Okay, so really and truly, my superiors are supposed to come on at 11 to discuss that, but I'll give you an overview. Now, there is a document called the CMO regulations that came into effect on the 6th of December, and then we were notified about them on the 10th of December. So there was not really any much time to do any transition work, no discussion about the implementation, those kinds of things. So there are certain sets of regulations, and we have to fulfill those regulations in order to get a certificate, a license to operate in the federation. That's what that is.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And how long does it take to obtain?
We don't know how long it takes to obtain. I think that the question was asked, but we didn't get a definitive answer.
Okay.
So that is the nature of that. But what I've been telling people is that in the meantime, if a CMO, because remember those CMO regulations don't just govern the operations of ECHO. They govern the regulation of every single type of CMO that wants to operate in St. Kitts and Nevis. So, for example, I know when I did my research, I found that in certain jurisdictions there were CMOs that even regulate on behalf of sports persons. For example, if let's take the FIFA game, and they use the likeness of players, right? Those kinds of things. There are CMOs in the USA and other places that will regulate those kinds of things. So it's every type of CMO, and CMOs don't only represent people in arts and entertainment. You can have a CMO for any kind of organization. Those regulations would govern how CMOs operate in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, and that those CMOs would need a license. Interestingly enough, the legislation does, in a part of it, does not specifically say CMOs. It says association of persons. So that is interesting because I'm not a lawyer, but association of persons could probably mean a publishing company, a recording company, any kind of association that deals with copyright. Or it also says related rights. That is why we have the owners of sound recordings will be covered under related rights. And even performers, association that represents performers would fall under related rights. So looking at the regulation, it would seem to me that it is not just a CMO, but also any association of persons that is dealing with licensing of copyright and related rights that need to be approved. So
in a situation like this now that they're saying that you're not legal to operate, we are not leave the content creators.
So this not it's not only the content creators. Okay, let me go to them second and talk about the actual users first,
Yeah.
because what you're doing now is exposing the users to liability. Because remember, the Copyright Act protects not only persons who are local creators, but the
Oh.
Copyright Act protects equally. They give the same treatment to persons who are foreign,
Oh.
foreign persons and entities, right?
Yeah.
So the law looks at a local person and a foreign person, or a local entity and a foreign entity, as the same,
Oh.
right? So that's what is happening. So these persons are now exposed to more liability. In terms of the persons who are creators, um, because I got calls right after from our members to find out, okay, will their collections be affected? Their collections are not affected, right? Because remember that their works are online as well, and being used in other jurisdictions, right? So in terms of the use of recordings online in other jurisdictions, and even public performance in other jurisdictions, their works, once they're played and the events are licensed and the uses are licensed, they would not be affected. So it's just in our jurisdiction that we have to sort out the more than anything else, the public performance side, right?
Oh.
And maybe in terms of like a music publisher, the mechanicals, because the mechanicals cover the reproduction right. So for example, if a radio station is using a sound recording, it not only pays for the public performance, right, of the musical work, but also they have to pay what is called a mechanical license, which is the right to hold it and reproduce it like a copy to the public. Now that mechanical right is given to users by music publishers. So if you act as your own music publisher, you can organize your mechanical licensing. But what normally happens is that there are CMOs that do that kind of work as well too, license that on your behalf.
Oh.
Right. Now, in the United States, right, they don't properly have CMOs. They have PROs. They have performance rights organizations, because they don't represent more than just that one right normally, right? But in our case, in Echo, for example, we represent the songwriters for the public performance, and also the mechanical rights that they get from the shares that they organize to get with a music publisher. If they're signed with a music publisher, or they have a co-publishing deal with a music publisher, you have the splits, and on the split sheet, our notification of works form, you will see that there's a column for the performing right and a column for the mechanicals. So a co-publishing deal could look like, I am the songwriter, right? I am doing a deal with a music publisher, right? We split it. So I get 50% of everything and they get the other 50%, right? But the point is that a CMO represents more than just one single right. It is a collective management organization, and normally it represents more than one right of the creator.
Okay.
Right.
So when it comes to different aspect, because you guys deal with different aspect, but mainly performing rights.
Right. So you want to talk about sound recordings now?
Yes.
Okay, right. Okay. This is very, very important. And I know me and you, we have been talking about the use of sound recordings for a very, very, very long time.
Yeah.
So now we are looking at something even more serious. And remember, we don't represent performing rights for sound recording owners or people who perform on sound recordings, like the artists and the musicians, right? We don't represent that right. But in terms of the whole music business, that is a very, very serious aspect of music business. And remember that sound recordings are subject to piracy. And piracy of sound recordings and any kind of recordings is something that is very, very much on the agenda for people who are trying to cut down on that activity. Maybe about 3 weeks ago, I don't know if you know Carla Paris.
Yes.
You know her? Okay, Carla
Yes.
Paris is from Trinidad. She is a sports and entertainment lawyer, and she invited number of persons to throw the invitation for us to attend a session that she was attending in Kenya, and she was invited to speak about our part of the world and aspects of that piracy, etc. So I attended, and it was very interesting because over in Kenya, right, they reported that they have a high incidence of piracy, and what is happening is that they're forming associations to try and tackle it, right? So Carla was invited to give a perspective from the Caribbean, right? And one of the things that she mentioned was the fact that a lot of what we are doing is because we don't know, we don't have the knowledge,
Yeah.
right? So it's not. Sometimes it's not a matter of willful infringement, but people generally don't know what they're supposed to do. Now, in terms of, I'm trying to find the definition of what piracy is here. Just give me a little short second here. In terms of a sound recording, basically you cannot just take a sound recording and you cannot rip a CD. You cannot take a software program to download something from YouTube
True.
and use
Is
it,
it?
right? You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to be able to have a business that is based on using illegal recordings.
Yeah.
Whether it is an audio recording or an audio visual recording, you're not supposed to do that, right? And what I have been trying to do for about a year and a half now, or a little bit more than that, is to advise people as to why it is they cannot do that, right? And this is very, very important when it comes to broadcasting. Broadcasting uses a lot of sound recordings. What should happen, and what I have been telling broadcasters, is that you have to make sure that you legally acquire the sound recordings before you use the sound recordings in your broadcast. The rights for the sound recording need to be cleared. I found it here. So it says, piracy of a sound recording refers to the unauthorized reproduction, distribution, sale, or public performance of a recorded piece of music or audio without the permission of the copyright owner, right? And remember, we're saying that in terms of a sound recording, we're looking at the person who owns the master of the recording, normally a record label or company, right? Or if you are a person who is a do-it-yourself, then you
Yes.
you own
Everything.
everything, the rights. Then you also have to look at the people who perform on that sound recording, meaning the artists, the backup singers, the musicians. All of those people have rights in that master recording. And what you are supposed to do, A, is to acquire a legal copy of that recording, and then make an arrangement as to how you are going to present that recording to the public. Maybe a bar or a restaurant or a hotel or a fete. Any kind of way you're going to use that, you have to clear that right for the sound recording. So, in music business, Echo is only one half of the way to get permission to use the music. The other half has to do with the people who are performers on sound recordings and who own the sound recordings, right? So what I've been saying, even before this current administration was in, I remember I was invited to attend the opening of, I think it was when the Moment was being launched over at Marriott. And I remember getting up and saying that, I'm reminding people that that we are only one half of that clearance pie, right? Both sets of rights have to be cleared in order for you to use music in the right way. So this thing about piracy and using a sound recording without authorization is a more, to me, being a sound recording owner and having rights in sound recordings, I think that is way more serious for us right now, rather than the work itself, the composition, the musical composition, because you're talking about unauthorized copying, making duplicates of a song or album without the rights holder's permission. For example, as I said before, copying CDs and ripping MP3s. Then you have illegal distribution, right? Distributing bootlegs, maybe at concerts, without somebody's consent. Then you have the commercial, this is a very important one, commercial exploitation, which is selling counterfeit CDs, records, or digital copies. And then listen to this one now, Mr. Flames. Using pirated music in advertisements, public events, or performances without a license. That comes under piracy. And then you have public performance without a license, playing copyright recordings in public places, clubs, stores, radio, without paying the necessary performance or mechanical royalties. So, the use of a sound recording, the actual physical product, is going to have a much more weight in law, right? Than, well, when I say much more weight, I mean the consequences can be much more severe. Right. The examples I have here of piracy: a DJ downloads songs from an illegal site and plays them at a club. I remember when we were talking many moons ago, you were talking about things like that,
yes.
And you said you were encouraging the DJs to go and get legal copies,
yes,
of their recordings,
yes,
right? Someone burns and sells copies of a popular album on the street. Well, we know we had things like that going on, but I don't see them anymore.
No more, yeah.
Right. Then it says uploading full albums to YouTube or social media without rights. So those are things that are covered under piracy of a sound recording. So that's very important. And I think that what should happen is that there should be a lot of public education surrounding the use of sound and also audiovisual recordings in terms of the consequences of for persons or entities that do that under the law.
Yeah.
Right?
So we'll take a short commercial break
Okay.
and get back into voices.
Rams the good food people always there to serve you. Rams the good food people, locations right near you. Rams the good food people, in-store specials for you. Rams the good food people. Rams. When you need better service, Rams is always here. Better value, better prices. Rams is always here. Rewarding your loyalty. Rams is always here. We are community. We are family. We are family. Rams for you and me. We are community. Rams for you and me.
Seize the day with a summer loan from TDC Financial Services. Whether it's vacation, home upgrades, back to to school prep, or even a little treat for yourself, borrow up to $65,000 unsecured with low rates and flexible terms. Apply today at TDC Financial Services, Central Street St. Kitts, or Main Street Charlestown, Nevis. Don't miss the sunshine. Let your summer plans sail smoothly with TDC Financial Services, where money is made easy.
And we're back with Voices, and we are speaking here with Grace from Echo, giving you some update as what's taking place with publishing and copyright infringement in these dire time. And also, we're going to be talking with I think you said
The CEO.
CEO.
Yes.
Yeah, to give us some more updates
Right.
with what's happening. I think there was an issue. I think there was an injunction filed, but we get into that a bit later.
Okay.
Yeah, so like one of the questions I want to ask, I know normally when you applying to a permit to do an event, you would have to upload a copy of a licensing from Echo. So now that the Echo is not operating in St. Kitts, that squash, what is going on with that?
I am not the police. I can't answer that question for you. All I know is this. The copyright law, and I have it right in front of me right here. Section 7 of the Copyright Act. And I always like to walk with my Copyright Act because that is the basis on which everything copyright operates in any country. Right. So Section 7 says, nature of copyright protection. By virtue of and subject to the provisions of this act, the owner of the copyright in a work shall have the exclusive right to do or to authorize other persons to do any of the following acts in St. Christopher and Nevis. A. Reproduce the work. B. Distribute copies of the work. C. Perform the work in public or, in the case of an audiovisual work, some recording or broadcast, to play or show the work in public. D. Broadcast the work. E. Communication to the public of the work. F. Make an adaptation of the work, and in relation to such adaptation, do any of or all of the foregoing acts. Or G. Rental of the work. Now, the most important thing here is that word exclusive right.
Yeah.
Now, if I cannot give you something to say that your event is covered, then you are supposed to go and contact the person who has the exclusive right. That is what I interpret this to mean, because the right belongs to them first.
Yes.
Right? Now, in terms of music, one of the reasons why CMOs are operational and even PROs are operational is because of the history of trying to clear rights. These rights are individual rights. So therefore, if you are going to have to contact every single creator to clear their right, you might as well just throw your hands in the air and say this is not going to happen ever, right? Because it's such a long task. It seems to be an impossible task. Now, in music, you have something called a split sheet, right? If more than one person does creates a work. So you might have, for example, I know when we were looking at dealing with licensing of music festival and in terms of settling for Sean Paul, when ASCAP sent the list of works for Sean Paul, you'd be surprised to see how many songwriters and how many music publishers are associated with each of the songs that he performed. And remember, he is a performer on stage, but remember, we are collecting for the people who created the
Yeah,
material
yeah,
that he's
yeah,
performing.
farming,
So
yeah.
if he didn't create or was a co-creator of the song, we still have to collect for the people whose work he's using,
Then, yeah.
right? So you're talking about one of them, for example, we saw about 6 songwriters and about an equal number of music publishers. Now, can you imagine having to go to collect to and clear the rights with each and
And
every
everyone,
single one of those?
yeah.
And remember also that if one of those entities objects to the use,
yes.
then you cannot use the material. So clearance of rights is a very, very, very serious thing because the owner of the copyright has the exclusive right to authorize who should do with what with their work. And remember, when we're talking about the owner of the copyright in terms of our Copyright Act, we're not only talking about local creators, we are talking about all creators, basically, local and foreign. So that's how we have to clear the right. So in terms of all our events happening right now, to my mind, that's what's supposed to be happening. All those rights are supposed to be cleared. And also, let's just go ahead because remember the Copyright Act also has exclusive rights for performers,
Yeah.
right? So performers also have exclusive rights. A person who has recording rights in relation to a performance shall have the exclusive right to prevent any person without his or her consent from making a recording of that performance, right? We have a lot of, from about section 113 way down into our copyright to about section 119 or thereabouts, we have a lot of information about the exclusive rights of performers and people who hold rights in sound recordings, and they're similar to the persons who are the creators. They have exclusive rights, and they can permit you or not permit you to do certain things with their works. So we have to look at that as well because we're looking at both sides of that pie, right? Divided in half, both sides of that pie. One of the things that I drew to attention of persons some time ago, because you know we have unfortunately or fortunately as the case may be, depends on whose side of the coin you're looking at. Persons who would take samples from recordings and then re-record and put their own
twist to it. Yeah.
Okay, so it says, this is 119 of the Act. A person infringes the rights of a person having recording rights in relation to a performance who, without his or her consent, makes a recording of the whole or any substantial part of the performance otherwise than for his or her private or domestic use. Right?
Yeah.
So there's a serious thing. You can't just take up somebody's recording and say, okay.
Yeah, me sample,
Exactly.
sample
You can't.
this part, or the chorus, or the verse, or the
Right,
hook.
okay.
Yeah.
And so what this is telling us now, and why I think that we should not look at all that is going on as something bad. This is actually something good because I get a chance to come and tell you what the law is because basically you don't know what it is. So I get the chance now to come and educate you more about what the law says. And this is not Grace saying this because Grace made it up.
Yes.
It is based on the law, right? And the more people are acquainted with the law, then they'll better understand how this whole entertainment industry operates, and then they'll understand why it is we have to be supportive of the people who are making the creations. Because without the creations, we have no kind of industry. I was thinking about a performance of an artist, and I was trying to say, okay, how can I describe how important intellectual property is to this whole business of entertainment? And I said, okay, so you have an artist on stage. you really like this artist, right? You see them on social media, say, wow, they dress fabulously. Oh, the voice is excellent. Oh, I like that song that they're singing, right? They might have a band. They say, oh, what would that? The guitarist is spectacular.
Yes.
You know, the keyboard player. You know something? Without intellectual property, those persons, sorry to say, would be just naked human beings on stage,
Yeah.
right? Because think about the fashion. Somebody's idea, oh, that jacket he's wearing, somebody decided, oh my goodness, let me draw a sketch of this here and I can make it and maybe somebody will buy it.
Yeah.
Well, the artist bought that. Or the artist had somebody based on their own design make something for them. Oh, that shoes, that Nike, right? Somebody had to go and design that,
Yeah.
right? Those instruments being played, right? So somebody long time ago decided, okay, if I cut a piece of wood like this and I put some strings on it and then the little design or whatever, and so then it might be interesting to use as a musical instrument.
Yeah.
So the point I'm making is that intellectual property is a very serious thing. Creations of the mind brought to life are very serious things, and the laws around the world have afforded certain people the exclusive right to use them for a certain time. In terms of our Copyright Act, it has been increased from 50 to 70 years after the death of the last contributor to a work, creation of a work. And therefore you have a right that vests with you as the creator, and then after you are gone to the great beyond, it gives your heirs assigns 70 more years to make something out of what you created.
Out of your estate.
Right. So that is very important. So to not honor creators is a travesty. Yeah, you must support creators, and I'm not talking about artisans per se, like people who make craft or those kinds of things. I'm talking about the people who do certain amount of royalty. They have creations of the mind. They put them out to the public, and they're due a payment in royalty. We need to honor those types of people more. In terms of honoring those types of people more, I've been talking over the last maybe about 4 or 5 weeks to persons who have done creations, but their creations have been copied or used without their permission, and it's very difficult for them to get any kind of redress. You have to understand that creators in our environment, and I'm not talking about St. Kitts and Nevis alone, creators in the Eastern Caribbean in general, their works are not compensated. They don't get much compensation for their works because licensing is very, very low, right? Which means that if licensing is low, it means that a lot of people are not abiding by the law, right? So you go and you put out your best, and you are not getting the reward for what you put out because licensing is low. But you're expected to keep on producing. So what has happened is that for time immemorial, what you have to do, you have to get a day job, and that day job has to supplement your creativity. And so therefore, what you're actually doing is depleting your funds because you're not getting any return from your creations. So we have to look at that as well too.
And when it comes to licensing, how much bars or restaurants are in compliance now? Like percentage have jumped?
I wouldn't say it has jumped. I would say that a lot more people are understanding and they're willing to cooperate, but I wouldn't say it has jumped because we still have some major hotels that are not compliant. We have a lot of bars and restaurants that are not compliant. And in terms of compliance, I'm not only looking at the traditional use of music, like somebody playing a song recording at a bar or restaurant. I'm also looking at streaming activity, like you might have a music station, not a local one, but you're using apparatus in your your establishment to stream music or to stream audio visuals. I've seen that, right, in supermarkets, right? We're talking about that kinds of compliance as well. I had an issue, and we still have issues with people using YouTube in their business environment. And even though it seems that as if it is something that can be done, you have to realize that YouTube is a platform where the content creators upload their work, and the whole point of it is to get the views, right? And in some, but not in our jurisdiction, but in some jurisdictions, you get rewarded financial reward for those views going up, right? So we don't have that chance yet as a region because we are being told that we infringe too much.
Oh.
Right? So if YouTube is a platform that gains and pays out based on advertising revenue that is collected, there has to be some way for YouTube to see value in having a presence in your territory. And if there's no enforcement of the law to make your creators feel comfortable and be rewarded for creating content to put on YouTube, your local YouTube content, then that's a disincentive.
Yes, it is.
They would not be inclined to come to our part of the world. Local content creators don't have enough content on YouTube, so therefore they can't benefit from advertising in our area. So those are considerations you have to take into
you have to take into consideration.
Right.
Yeah.
Same thing with the use of like Sonos speakers. And even though you might be able to have the speaker systems or any kind of speaker system in your establishment, the right to use the material, especially music, you have to clear those rights, right? Once you're using music and it's copyright music, you have to figure out how we're going to clear those rights, right? So those are things that we're looking at as well. I don't know in terms of enforcement of the law what is going to happen. I know that in 2018, a team from ECHO came to St. Kitts and Nevis that included the CEO at that time, and the chair of the board, and another board member, and I think the office manager, if I remember correctly. And we did a series of engagements. One was with the Attorney General at that time, and that was to discuss the operation of broadcasters, especially because we're looking at the fact that broadcasters, a lot of what broadcasters do involves the use of music. And so therefore, in terms of licensing of broadcasters, it was suggested that what should happen is that you look at the content first, because really and truly, if music is supposed to be licensed and you're licensing a broadcaster, then it stands to reason that you should make sure that they, before they get a license, should be able to show you that they have covered the licensing for music, right? The other meeting that was held, the other significant one, was with the police commissioner at that time, that was Quealy, right? And in that meeting, he was brought up to speed on the Copyright Act of that time. And what he recognized was that, there was a role for the police to play in terms of enforcing. And one of the things, the examples that we brought up was that Socrates, right? He recounted at one point to me, so I related, was that he heard somebody and saw somebody on a beach playing his music, and he told the person to stop. He even brought a police officer to tell them that this person was playing his music and did not have the permission, and the police officer did not know what to do. Right? Yeah. So we have to look at things like that. So Quealy recognized that there was training that would be needed. What happened after that was that a meeting was organized with the top persons in the police force. That meeting was held by one of those rooms across by the fire station, right? I didn't realize the police had so many people in the top, right. And then it was introduced to them, the whole idea of copyright and why the police should get involved. And then what was supposed to happen after that, because that presentation was made by the IP registrar, which would have been Jihan, right? What was supposed to happen after that was that training was supposed to take place for the police force, members of the police force. And this is 2025. I don't know what happened after that point in time. But what other persons have been saying to me, because people have been talking to me throughout this whole thing, and what they're saying is that they don't have anywhere that they can get any kind of public information on the Copyright Act, rather than just getting a copy of the act. They want somewhere where they can go and get more information about the act.
I think there should be a lot more PR work when it comes to something as special as copyright now, because most people is confused.
Right.
Echo can operate, Echo cannot operate.
Yeah,
Echo can, and then it's too much back and forth.
Yeah, but you see, we have to remember it's not only Echo. Remember, in terms of Echo and its operation, remember we have reciprocal agreements with similar organizations around the world, right? So we don't only operate on our behalf, we operate on basically everybody else's behalf in the Federation. It would be very expensive for another CMO to come and say, okay, let me set up. And not only that, remember, a CMO is a membership organization.
Let me dive a little bit deeper into this, but we'll just take a short commercial break and come back. Yeah.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
Unwrap the joy this Christmas with TDC.
Campari, Red Passion, embrace the mix.
Campari, Red Passion, full action, this is Red Passion. Embrace the mix, add Campari, make it turn and twist. Add your chaser in your drink. Campari, Red Passion, make the nicest mix. Campari.
Campari Red Passion. Embrace the mix. Must be 18 years or older to drink. Drink responsibly.
Unwrap the joy.
Let TDC Financial Services help you go for your goals. Whether you're thinking of taking that grand vacation, down payment on a house, higher education, TDC Financial Services has various plans that will allow you to go for your goals. Choose from the Accumulator Plus, Investment Starter Plan, and Fixed Deposit. Ready to go for your goals? Visit us at TDC Financial Services, where money is made easy.
It's the energy of we people, something pulsing inside. It beats in every soul, a feeling we cannot It's always pushing us forward, the limit up in the sky. There's rhythm in how we flow, a rhythm that can't be denied. It's in the feeling in our we talk. It's in the meaning in our spot. It is the thing that sets us apart. Who we are, 'cause the rhythm of life keeps pumping.
Yes, and we're back with Vices, and we're here with Grace,
Yes.
giving you all the updates of what's going on with the copyright situation in St. Kitts and Nevis. And later on, I think in the next 9 minutes or so, we're going to be joined by ECHO CEO as well to give us some more insight. So we were talking about
Yes, CMOs and our relationship to foreign CMOs. I was going on to say that in St. Kitts and Nevis, as not necessarily as an echo agent, but as a person generally involved in music business, I was going on to say that in St. Kitts and Nevis, as not necessarily as an echo agent, but as a person CMO, which is PPL. So we're not only dealing with the songwriting side, we also have CMOs on the recording side as well, right? So we have to bear that in mind, right? So we have PPL members on the ground in St. Kitts and Nevis. Now, in September 2022, when we were called to meet with the Attorney General, right, one of the things he was saying was that he wanted us to be able to represent all rights, whether they're on the songwriting side and also on the recording side. So what preliminary, what we're trying to explain to him, that this is not something that can be easily done. And you see this issue of piracy, and that is why I'm trying to sensitize the public, because when it comes to protecting the so that is one of the considerations that the public should take into mind, that we have to look at piracy. A lot of persons say, oh, I don't understand. YouTube, the thing is up there for free.
Yeah.
Why can't I use it? Or whatever. Oh, I bought it.
Right,
Somebody else, according to the copyright law, holds that right. So we have to look at all of those kinds of things if we are going to address what happens on the recording side. So we cannot just jump into dealing with recording rights and performance rights and recordings without looking at those kinds of things. And an important part of that is sensitizing the public. So we have channels, government websites, we have information services, etc. All of those things have to be used to play a role in sensitizing the public, right? Very, very important.
And also the creatives have to invest the time to understand what they're getting into or what they're in.
Which is true, because this is any jurisdiction, because remember, we're not only represented St. Kitts and Nevis. A general problem that there is, and this is not only St. Kitts and Nevis or ECHO or JCAP or COSCAP, there are a lot of creators around the world who are so focused on the act of creating that they don't understand what the law is and the business is behind that creation to protect them. So you find that what happens sometimes is that a creator, and this happens in the Caribbean, will also be a performer. And then they go and they make some kind of deal to perform, and then when there is no licensing, or when they are saying that they're a member of an organization, then they get pushback from the person who is having the event. They tend to come and say, oh, why are you being so hard? Give them a chance, you know? And they don't understand that they have, if they do that, they are hurting the rights of other creators. So you have to know your role and then play it accordingly. So if you're a performer and you're performing and you're also a rights holder, you wrote up for something, right? You should stand up for something, right? And that's something should be the exclusive right of the creators, especially if you're a co-creator. It's sad and entities, bands, etc. out there who are performing the works of others without licensing, without even caring about how that co-creator is surviving. It's a very sad thing. And so these are, if we want to build something called a music industry and then expand out entertainment industry, which involves more than just music recordings, but audio, visuals,
Yes.
film,
Yes.
those kinds of things, then we have to look seriously at how we protect the creators. Or incidentally, in our act, what people should read about as well is the rights of directors of audiovisuals, because the act also covers that. So directors also have some rights.
Like for movies.
You're
and,
exactly right,
okay.
and yes, the directors also have rights. And incidentally, going back to PPL, their organization, the CMO that represents song recording on. Curiously enough, they also represent people who do visuals as well, to videos, right? Audiovisual works as well. Jamaica, which is the equivalent of PPL in Jamaica. And what I noticed that PPL and Jams have a very close working relationship. So I contacted him to find out, okay, would it be okay for us in Jamaica? And what I noticed that PPL and Jams have a very close working relationship. So I contacted him to find out, okay, would it be okay for us to join Jams? And he says no. What we should in between 2018 and 2019, and he was at that session in St. Lucia, and that question was asked to him as well too, and that was sure that St. Kitts and Nevis, the persons in St. Kitts and Nevis, whether it be the persons who are creating or the persons who are using audiovisual, become aware of all the issues and all of the avenues to get advantages from the use of these works. Because in the 21st century direction, right, what we are finding of transmission of the work and communication of the work, that side of the industry is more vibrant, right, than the performing side right now. And so if, for example, you are a songwriter, you don't have to necessarily put your song in the hands of a person who's going to perform it at an event. What you can do, you can actually set yourself up online. You can go and set up a YouTube channel. You can put it on SoundCloud. You can find uses for it in TikTok, or Instagram, Facebook. You can set yourself up in that online environment and continue to make some kind of headway. Because think of it like this: once you do that, you're available to the world 24/7, right? If you're only gonna rely on live performance in St. Kitts and Nevis, that's now and again. But what you want is 24/7 presence, and then you want to be able to attract people to those online media spaces and spaces that you have, so that you can build up a fan base, right? That's the most important thing, build up a fan base, especially if you're a person who is writing and you're also performing, right? You want to build that fan base. And what better way than to put it on YouTube and check your views all the time to see how your views are increasing. And then remember, with YouTube, you can go and check the analytics, right? You can go and find out, okay, who is listening to my music? What age group? Where in the world? What gender? Those kinds of things that will drive your activity, your marketing activity. So we have to look at those kinds of things seriously. And the general public has to buy into all of this, because remember, we are in a part of the world, and there are lots of parts of the world like this, unfortunately, where we think that creating, oh, that's just a side thing. You go and get a real job. That's not a real job, right? That the creator is doing something that will have no real reward in the end. But then, when we look at reports coming out of the USA, for example, for the period gone, 2024, right? You find that the music publisher right? And I come back to that because that's where we started.
Yeah.
The music publisher, right, is an entity that no matter what you do with music, recording, the music publisher and the songwriter will always be benefiting. So therefore that's steady. So for example, if you have, let's take the example of the song, The Power of Love. The one that everybody knows that probably Celine Dion did, Air Supply did, Jennifer
Yes.
Rush did, Gloria Branigan did, right?
Yeah.
If you look at all specs, for that, who was the writer and who was the producer, what you're going to find is that the writers will remain the same, right? And their publishing entity, if they had one, will always benefit from those 4 versions of that song, right? The producer will change, but the person who wrote it will always get
be
something.
yes.
So that's the value of music publishing. We should not discard the value of music publishing. And the reason why in St. Kitts and Nevis we don't know much about music publishing is because not a lot of activity is taking place with licensing. If a lot of licensing activity was taking place, then you will learn about synchronization licenses, you will learn about the master use license, you will learn about the mechanical license. And so because there's no licensing, the public is not aware of the different types of licenses that music publishers that they give, right, for certain works. That is something that is not only a deficiency in St. Kitts and Nevis, but also the Caribbean as a whole. Music publishing is not something that is understood and practiced well in the Caribbean as a whole. Maybe it's in some jurisdictions more than some, but generally not in I should say the CARICOM Caribbean, right?
Okay.
Right? And in terms of collecting music publishing royalties, that's another issue. A lot of persons put things on Spotify, they put things on, they distribute things through CD Baby or TuneCore or whatever, and they might be collecting for the public performance.
We're about to join
Okay, well.
the 2 colleagues. I'm not sure if they
Can hear you?
hear me as
Okay,
yet,
all
but
right.
let me see. Pleasant. Hello?
Hi, hello.
Yeah, pleasant good morning to you. Is this Mr. James? Martin
Yes.
James?
Yes, I am. Yes,
Yeah,
Martin
pleasant good
James.
morning to you, and welcome to Voices here on winnfm 98.9 FM dial. And I hear you are the CEO of Echo in the region right now, and we're also joined by hello,
Hi,
Yes.
Mr.
Yeah.
Keen
and we also what's your name, sir?
Keen Cotter, the operations manager. at
Sure.
Echo.
Okay, all right, and we have Grace in studio.
And I've heard she's been doing a great job with explaining music
So far,
publishing.
publishing so far, yes.
Yeah.
That's a really broad topic, but she has a firm grasp on it. And
Name, sir? Okay. Okay.
Smalley can waste up to 20 gallons of water daily. Smalley can waste up to 20 gallons of water daily, which can really add up over time. Wow, that's a lot.
Okay, seems like was having a little technical difficulties. Linking up with the CEO of Echo. But we're gonna reconvene right here and see how it goes. Stick and stay with us for voices. It's all about copyright and Echo operation in St. Kitts and Nevis. We're gonna be clearing the hair, and we're gonna be getting informed of what is the next step and when or if Echo will be able to operate again in St. Kitts and Nevis. Stick and stay with us right here. Voices. Yes, let us have everything is working perfect now. Good morning once more. Everyone is hearing me clearly. Hello? Okay, good. And Grace,
Yes, I can hear.
the question I would like to ask, what next? Because I know if there are laws and rules and policies that this is to be in place and this Echo or CMO is supposed to be collecting stuff, what next? Where we go from here? How St. Kitts, what situation St. Kitts is in now that there's no CMO to collect the licensing fee for live performance and stuff like that? Is there any legal issue? Is there any contingent plan going to be put in place until something, get up and start put in place permanently?
Okay. Well, first off, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here, and I'm to answer your question and to shed some light as to what is Echo's position.
Because it's necessary. Echo is necessary. The Copyright Act in St. Kitts is necessary, so everybody have to work hand in hand. And the creators are also necessary. But sometimes, as you say, when it's dusty, it gets cloudy and misinformation and stuff like that. So just give me a little bit of both, like summarize what, how it started to how it's end up to what it is right now.
Okay, good job. Thank you. Much obliged.
Yeah.
So, ECHO is the Eastern Caribbean Collective Organization for Music Rights, and the name explains what we do. We administer the rights of creators within the OECS, and by extension, the rest of the world through reciprocal agreements with our affiliates, with similar CMOs like ourselves across the globe.
Yeah.
ECHO is headquartered in St. Lucia, but ECHO is registered as an external company, and it's an NGO, right? Membership NGO. It is registered in St. Kitts and Nevis as an NGO with the Registrar of Companies from since 2013. So we've been operating in St. Kitts and Nevis from 2013 now. We've had some successes in terms of the persons getting to understand what Echo, why Echo, and why ACMO, and why intellectual property management and copyright management. So we've come a long way in terms of reaching where we're at. Sufficing to say that we are still facing a plethora of challenges. We have a lot of challenges because not just the fact that we have the legal mandate to operate and administer the rights of our members, we have the challenges with infringement, with persons naturally not understanding and the lack of obtaining the copyright license. So it's a simple thing. ECHO must be legally sound in St. Kitts and Nevis, and we've been so since 2013, and we've been administering. So just let me give you a little update as to why all the controversy really, or all the talk around the ECHO right now. There is something called we are a CMO, which is a collective management organization, and WIPO created something called a CMO regulation. So they actually put a regulation in place to regulate the CMO and for transparency and for all what they say. They say is needed for. And naturally, we don't have any issue with that because we are a non-profit. If you go on www.ecorights.org, you could find all of our financial statements over the years and all of our annual reports because we are mandated to provide it to the public, the world. So we have absolutely no issue with is having a CMO regulations. Naturally, the regulations that are there, we recognize some anomalies and we recognize some deficiencies, albeit that there was a level of consultation. Not enough though, but there was a level of consultation, not just with ECHO, but with some other CMOs across the OECS, right? Across the Caribbean rather. And St. Kitts on along with the CMO regulations, before the CMO regulations, we have the Copyright Act of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Yeah.
So the Copyright Act spells out how copyright is managed and how to treat with copyright. And also accompanying the Copyright Act, we have the Berne Convention, where St. Kitts is a signatory to the Berne Convention that speaks to the protection of artistic and literary works. Okay? So so we have all the legal parameters to operate within, and ECHO have been meeting all those requirements. Naturally, in registering with the registry of companies, you have every year you have to provide a certain level of KYCs and documentation for all your directors and all those things. So those, in some instances, it might take a little time because when you're dealing with individuals, not everybody, meet everything at the same time and simultaneously. But all that being said, we've been meeting all those requirements, and there comes in the CMO regulations. The CMO regulations was made law. So it went through Parliament, it went through its processes, and it was made law on the 6th of December 2024. On the 10th of December, 4 days after, ECHO, I received a letter from the registrar of the IPO through the registrar of the IPO coming from the office of the Attorney General, indicating that ECHO, and I'm saying 4 days after it became law, ECHO would not be able to operate in St. Kitts if we don't meet all the requirements of this new legislation, which was just passed 4 days ago. Naturally, that is an unfair position to be brought in because, in essence, we wrote through our attorney, we wrote back to the Attorney General indicating and asking that we invoke the transitional period, a fair transitional period for any piece of legislation. Because if you go back to history, I don't think there isn't any piece of legislation that has been made law in St. Kitts and Nevis that has been almost like a dictator saying that you must, with immediate effect, administer. And I think it's unfair and it's unkind. Notwithstanding that, we wrote professionally to the Attorney General, and to date, we have not yet received a response from the Attorney General, and indicating that we have recognized some anomalies or some deficiency with some of the articles within the CMO regulation, and we wanted to speak with them and to invoke the transitional period to give us time to comply.
Yeah.
No responses we received, and naturally we would also indicate that the court, we were not going to rule out going to the extent of the courts getting registered, because this is how it's done. It was a legal document. On the 27th of May, I received a letter from the Attorney General, which would be the second letter from the Attorney General, indicating that ECHO could no longer operate. We've been disbanded.
Yeah.
By the time I received that letter, accompanied with that letter, in the media was a press release speaking to all what that had taken place. The press release failed to mention that we had we wrote and we had not received a response, which would be courteous and proper in these circumstances. So the press release basically saying that we are disbanded and then try to, I would say, embarrass and demonize ECHO in its operation. So here's what we did. Through our attorney, we filed for, and all the time we were continuing to work with the registrar, the registry of companies, to ensure that we get our compliance certificate.
Yeah.
Now, and that was a key factor why we had not, apart from the fact that we wrote to the Attorney General and was still awaiting a response, we had not submitted the application to the IPO's office as per the new regulation because we had not met that requirement. We had not received our certificate of compliance from the registry of companies.
Oh, and where would you obtain that certificate? From St. Kitts locally or from the international body?
No, from St. Kitts,
Okay.
because we are obligated to we are mandated to present all our figures, to get a certificate of compliance from St. Kitts, of course. So we received that. So just let me take you to it. We wrote through our attorney asking for an interim injunction on the regulations, and two, we also, during that process, we wrote to the registry. We're trying to get our certificate of compliance.
Yeah.
The certificate of compliance came last week. We got the certificate of compliance a day before the court. We went to the court because there was a hearing for the injunction.
Yeah.
The judge indicated that there was no need for an injunction because we had met that requirement on the registry side. So now all we have to do is to apply to the IPO for our certificate. What I could tell you, as it stands, if it's not before the IPO this morning, it will be with the registrar by this afternoon, hopefully because we have been working at it, because the intention is not to fight. The intention is to meet all the requirements and for us to ensure that we are legit to administer the rights of the creatives, because all what that is happening there is affecting the creatives in St. Kitts and Nevis, and not just the St. Kitts and Nevis creatives, by extension the rest of the globe, the rest of the creatives across, because the music that is played in St. Kitts and Nevis not only is that some of it is not owned by creators in St. Kitts and Nevis, but other persons across. There are collaborations between St. Kitts and Nevis creators along with other persons around the globe. So we administer the rights of creators of the music, and all that is working out. It like, as we've been demonized, it appears that it is ECHO doing everything wrong. No, we have not been doing anything wrong. We've been doing everything right. What I could say to you is the fact whether it was we didn't get the transitional, we didn't do all that. Yes, this is a process that we're trying to fulfill.
Yeah.
We were not compliant, if you want to put it that way. We were not compliant with the new regulations. But then I can tell you what led to that. We were working to ensure that we became compliant, and there wasn't any synergies or proper communication, or at least the respect from the office of the Attorney General. And if there was, because we're in this together, so it appeared like you were just fighting. No, we are not fighting. We are in one ecosystem. And for me to say ecosystem, I've changed ecosystem to ecosystem. Right?
Yeah.
We are all stakeholders. So this is where we're at. So as we speak, my kind sir, and listeners, as we speak, we have met all the requirements from the registry of companies, and we have also, in our estimation, we've met all the requirements for the license from the IPO office, and we are going to submit this license if we've not submitted it. I was just trying to reach our attorney. Because we do it through the attorney. If it has not been deposited or presented to the IPO, to the registrar, it should be by end of day.
End of day. Okay, so with that said, is there like a time frame and not a regular time frame to a regular time frame to submit and then return? Because when I interviewed Gian a few weeks back, she said that you guys was also told that they would expedite it as well. So you're looking for this to be done in the next 2 weeks for 21 days, or
2 weeks. 2 weeks. 21 days might be too distant.
Too distant. Okay.
Yeah. And the reason for and I'm grateful for that statement that they would expedite it, and it needs to be expedited. I'll tell you why, my kind sir. Our creatives in St. Kitts depend on the festivals and the use of the of the works. They depend highly on that. There is a major festival that takes place in St. Kitts, and it is well renowned, and as well as it attracts a lot of tourists and a lot of listenership and viewership and patrons. That is the St. Kitts Music Festival. When is it due? When is it happening?
Next week.
Beautiful. And here's what. The St. Kitts Music Festival needs to get its clearances, because the artists and the creatives that will be performing at the St. Kitts Music Festival, and every song that will be played at this festival, the creators need to know that their rights will not be infringed upon.
Yeah.
And insofar as ECHO is the duly recognized agency to provide you with that license. So this little anomaly or hiccup really should not debar and prevent the authorities in St. Kitts and Nevis from at least getting the license and the clearance. It should not. That is why I'm saying the application should be before the registrar this afternoon, or within a day, within a day. And we would like for them to expedite it so the festival could be licensed. Because if the festival is not licensed, then that could create a heavy situation and an unkind situation for St. Kitts and Nevis.
Okay. I'm going to take a short commercial break. I have a few questions for you as well, because I've been lobbying for ECHO for quite some time, and a lot of entertainers and creatives and been asking me some question like pertaining to payout schedule and timing. So when we get back, we will dive into some of those questions and see, to clear the air, because those are some of the stuff that was also mentioned, that you got to meet the standard of, showing your expense report and how you distribute the payment of royalties. So when we get back, we dive into those. All right?
Definitely.
All right.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
Supermarket shoppers understand that convenience matters. At Hortsport's Value Mart IGA, we know that price matters most. Ample parking and the widest variety matter. At Hortsport's Value Mart IGA, we know that price matters most. Clean, spacious aisles and the highest level of customer service all matter. At Hortsport's Value Mart IGA, price matters most. We've renewed our commitment to guarantee the lowest prices in the Federation. Why? Because we understand that in this tough economic environment, price matters most. Shop smart. Shop Value Mart, where price matters most. Farms Estate Nevis and Wellington Road, St. Kitts.
Price matters most.
Hortsport's Value Mart IGA is helping you spend less and save more. How, you ask? Essential Everyday and Equiline. Spend less on our Essential Everyday products and get the best quality, the best taste, and the best value. Spend less for all your family health and beauty needs with the Equiline brand of over-the-counter products. Hortsport's Value Mart IGA is helping you spend less. With our Essential Everyday products and Equiline over-the-counter health and beauty care products. Shop smart and spend less at Value Mart, where price matters most.
are back, and it's voices, and don't forget we're talking about copyright and music rights and a whole heap of stuff what's happening in St. Kitts when it comes to the Copyright Act and Echo operating in St. Kitts and Nevis. Before we take the break, I was asking the Mr. Martin James, the question of how often you guys pay out and where. I know you said earlier that you can go on the website to see your finance report, but how frequently you guys pay out in the region? Like, say, is it monthly, bi-weekly, quarterly? How that goes when it comes to paying out the royalties to the creatives?
Okay. Well, thank you for that question. As it stands, we are doing it biannually. Okay. But I would allow Mr. Cotter to jump in, because even whilst we are paying out biannually, there needs to be an understanding and an appreciation of how royalties are calculated and how we actually what we need to make the payout. So Mr. Cotter could jump in at this point.
Okay.
Okay, so Echo distributes yearly. We make one distribution a year.
Yeah.
But for the past few years, we've been making two distributions,
Mm-hmm.
and we do it for various periods. So in 2024, we made two distributions. We paid out for 2021, and we paid out for 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we are working on a distribution to pay out for 2023, and in December we will be paying out for 2024.
Mm-hmm.
And we pay out based on logs that we receive, and also the royalties that we receive.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, one of the distributions last year for 2024, we made a broadcast distribution, a live distribution, and a carnival distribution. Now, those distributions are the categories, but it's the data is allocated and the revenue is allocated based on the territories they are received. So, for example, broadcast distribution last year included 5 radio stations from St. Lucia, 1 television station from St. Lucia, and 1 radio station from Antigua and Barbuda.
Mm-hmm.
So no St. Kitts stations involved in that distribution.
Mm-hmm.
The live distribution featured CPL from CPL that occurred in St. Lucia, and also CPL that occurred in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Yeah.
So works music aired during that CPL in St. Kitts would have been featured in the distribution.
Mm-hmm.
And then carnival distribution, we had some logs from St. Kitts Carnival. So Grace would have been at one of the licensed events, and she would have gathered that information for us, right?
Yeah.
But primarily everything else was St. Lucian Carnival events. And that's because a lot of the events in the other territories remain unlicensed, right? So a lot of the St. Kitts events that occurred during Carnival were not licensed. So you could see right there, and then why it would be a disservice. Why it is a disservice to the St. Kitts members that a lot of the entities, music users, are not licensed over there, right?
Yeah.
So once we collect logs, so members need to understand that music being played on radio is not the only way royalties are generated, right? So royalties are generated in many different ways, and one of the ways is live performances. Live performances will generate performing rights royalties, and also it could generate some other royalties for the master use and so on. If the music is being synced to visual, right?
Mm-hmm.
But let's just focus on the performing rights. Whenever for royalties to be generated, a few things need to be in line. One, the event or business has to be licensed. So we're not only talking radio, we're talking TV, we're talking bars, we're talking clubs, we're talking small events, barbecues, fundraisers, and so on, right? That's where the money comes from. The money has to come from somewhere. So those things have to be licensed. 2, we need to collect the data from those things, right? So we go out any event that's licensed for over $3,000. We go out to collect the logs. We
Mm-hmm.
make a concerted effort to go out get the logs from these events. However, we still encourage members, even if you perform at a small event, send us your logs. It could be a small event that's 168.75. Whether you perform for free or you got paid, send us your logs. We will
Mm-hmm.
include it in what we call the general distribution, and I will explain that in a little bit.
Yeah.
Also, so we need the money, we need the data. The members' works have to be registered. It has to be registered because we would not know who to pay, right? So by registering the works, they tell us who owns what in the song and how much do we pay each creative on the song, right? So those three factors have to be present for members to generate royalties.
Yeah.
Now, I mentioned general distribution, and any member who generated royalties before would notice that they would generate more money from a general distribution than from a let's say broadcast radio or an event, right? And that's because that pool is usually the biggest pool. So what happens is monies that comes from hotels and bars and clubs and so on, they would go into the general pool.
Cool.
Small events will go into the general pool.
Cool.
Um, and so it's a wider pool. So if our broadcast revenue is let's say 100,000 to distribute, usually general will be 400,000, just to show how much of a difference it usually is, right?
Yeah.
So members who also feature in that pool would generate more money than if it came from only a radio pool or a single event pool. But what Echo does is the general pool also features works that are in the other pools. So if your work featured in let's say a WinFM a WinFM radio pool, it would also feature in the general pool because that's money that needs to be distributed.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's how, and usually it's a 20, and in the past we took a 25% sample of logs from radio that was not licensed, and obviously that's in itself does an injustice to a lot of our members as well, because radio still plays a lot of foreign music.
Yeah.
But we take a small sample because the money is there to be distributed and we are mandated to distribute.
Good. Okay.
Can I just add, Kin, now my kind sir, this is actually a diminishing return scenario because you need to get the data. We need the data to distribute the money, and you need the money as well. So you are taking data from non-compliant broadcasters, really, and that has been the scenario, and that is the narrative that needs to change in St. Kitts to improve on the status quo.
So when it comes to data collecting, is it the radio station or the promoter or the event organizer to submit the log, or is someone from Echo need to come and make the log or collect the log? How that work? And we're living in a digital era now as well. Digital age
Shall I
as well.
answer?
Sure.
Oh, yes, Grace. Oh, yes,
Okay.
Grace is
What is supposed to happen is that the organizer of the event is supposed to gather the information and submit it. That's the general. But in terms of radio stations, they submit logs, right? But what is happening is that because a lot of persons who have events don't do it, I have to go out and I have to do it. There's actually a performance log that should be completed between the person who is having the event and the persons who perform on the event, right? That should be filled out, but that is not done. So I have to do a lot of the work and go out there and physically be present to get the information.
Okay.
And that's one.
Yeah.
And in recent past, last year we tried out a new system, which obviously has cost attached to it. Again, I'm telling you, diminishing because we need to introduce it. So it was a system. It's to monitor digitally, really. So you go to the event and you just basically just record, and it's uploaded to a system that could match it and give us the data that we need. So all that is done in the whole interest of ensuring that we get accurate, and because in some instances you have two fets and two events and three events happening at the same simultaneously, right? So you would need to gather all that information. So these are approaches that we are taking to look at the digital age, working with the digital age to try and ensure that we do it. But even before that, there must be the adherence to the legal position, which is to ensure that you get your license. You must be licensed. So even though I come and get the data and all that, and you are not licensed, it really affects the entire narrative.
So what next? So you guys come into compliance. You guys, I probably start to operate fully in St. Kitts and Nevis. What mechanisms are in place to ensure that everyone come into compliance with what should be doing when it comes to copyright?
Very good question. What we need though, because we're not reinventing the wheel, we're not starting fresh, We're basically just continuing how we've been operating, and we've been in a legal parameter. The only hiccup was the fact that this new legislation came in, and the approach of the Attorney General in my, just to say it bluntly. And if there was a better approach, we probably would not be at that stage. In any event, as we've been operating, what we do need, and I have heard repeatedly the lack of the authorities to assist in doing it. What we do need is for the authorities to impress, because St. Kitts and Nevis is not a lawless society. What we do need is for the authorities, and I say the authorities meaning the legal arm and the administrative arm and all of them, and actually the operational arm of the government and the authorities, to assist us and and by assisting us, I mean impress on the users of music, impress on broadcasters, impress on everybody who's going to use the copyrighted music or material of the creatives in public, to ensure that they get the license. So what we would request is for there to be synergies between us as an agency and the administrative arm of the authorities to impress on them. We would need that. Kin could add, I'm certainly sure Grace could also add to that. But that would be a start for us.
Yes, I can. Yes, sorry, King. Go ahead, Keen.
Yeah, for sure. So that's definitely necessary. I mean, at the end of the day, making it a fanfare thing that Echo was not within requirements and so on. At the end of the day, now that we are on the way, it should be a conversation where we are at the table and saying, hey, how can we make things better for the creatives in St. Kitts? Because at the end of the day, Echo's mandate is to assist our members to represent their intellectual property and copyrights, and to get them fair compensation for the use of their works. And so we need to sit at the table with the authorities, like Mr. James said, so we could figure out how we making it possible for the members. And also we also need the members to answer our calls, right? We're having a distribution right now. There are some members who are due some royalties.
Please let them know when the distribution, the payout will be. Let them know.
Yeah, so the payout will be June 30th. And we have like with everything, there's a process, right? And at some point everything has to close so the final stages could happen. There are members in St. Kitts who have accumulated royalties that we have been trying to get to register some songs that we noticed that are not registered, but it came across our data, and so we know that the works were used somewhere, but however we cannot get the members to register the works now, and that's because of varying factors. But we need the members to understand that for royalties to be generated, the works have to be registered. That's the first thing, first and foremost. A song that's not registered, that's played 1 million times, will not generate any royalties. So it has to be registered. We need to know who to pay. We need to know the artist name, the songwriters, the song title, and so on.
Grace, if you go ahead.
Just echoing the sentiment, we have to, as I was saying before, the gentleman joined, we need a concerted effort to let the artists, songwriters, musicians, everybody involved in the whole business of making sure that music industry succeeds in St. Kitts and Nevis. Everybody has to know all the details, including what is contained in the Copyright Act, right? Because if we don't understand why we are doing what we're doing, we will continue to have all of this misinformation out there. And what we don't want is that to spiral into what we are seeing as a region that has that particular problem, so we can attract people to come and do some serious investment into our industry. Or we cannot have our local superstars be born in the federation and then go out instead of having to go out and seek the opportunities to come back in. So what we want is fertile ground in our communities, in our countries, so that the stars can be born here and then they go out and people come here to see them. That's what we want, because that is how we're going to make money for the country. It's sad to see that a lot of Caribbean countries have had stars, but those stars had to go out there to make it.
Yeah. Well, one of the I think this is going to be my my final or second to last question. What mechanism you guys are putting in place, or what plan you guys have in place to communicate, to the general public based on what is going to happen in a couple of days or a week or two when you guys, re-establish to operate in St. Kitts fully?
Mr. Flames, let me go back to the beginning before we even go to the future.
Yes.
I will let you know, right? That there have been numerous times that I was promised that I would be given the opportunity to go and speak about things, and those things never materialize.
So speak at where, like...
let me give you an example.
Yes.
Last year, around May, I was taken down to SKNIS, and I was, and it was communicated to SKNIS that I should be given, I think the name of the program is in Focus.
Yeah.
That I should be given the entire time for an In Focus program to speak about ECHO and its operation. I'm still waiting.
Oh.
And that is not an isolated incident.
Not at all.
So I cannot tell you what is going to happen. I can tell you that I'm willing to talk, and every time I go and I speak to a user, I tell them, look, organize something and I will come and talk. Apart from that, we can only send out a press release or put it on the Facebook page or whatever, but we need the opportunity to speak.
Right.
Well, that is true, but I think the time, like, based on what is happening, there must be a contingency plan where that you got to maneuver, because I believe ECHO should be putting their foot out there once you guys up and running fully to educate every person who coming up or who want to be a creative, the importance of registering the stuff, notifying the general public about the Copyright Act and the do and the don'ts, because if the government is not doing it, I think you guys should pick up the mantle and...
All right. Well, thank you. I think I could just add to Grace gave you the genesis of some stuff there, but I want to tell you that we will continue to create. We have membership engagements, especially our members. We have a membership officer, and we're creating communities now for us to now have membership training, membership webinars, and all those. And we are going to ensure, and we are asking that all broadcasters, according to the Copyright Act, Mr. winnfm, my brother, winnfm is supposed to have a license or a clearance from the Copyright Act.
Yes, yes. All radio station should have.
Right.
Yes.
So this is a start. I would really love, maybe let's start it. Cause your management to get this license, get it going, because we have a resolution with an introductory rate for 6 months now for broadcasters to come on board and to do all that. come on board. Let us start. Let us go forward
Mhm.
with it and being compliant. And then now we will be able to use more of the. We could use your facility to bring out the message a little more,
Yes,
use a
yes.
little more. But it needs to be within the legal framework.
For
And then
yes, yes.
something that has worked for, and there was an increase in collections, and it was a person's understood, a little better when the police was on board with us, and the police is still willing to be on board with us. But we had discussions with the commissioner. But I understood they were instructed to stop what they were doing, or those are my terms. Those are my terms,
Yeah.
right? But um, the police in other jurisdictions, let's use St. Lucia, we have an MOU with the police where the loudspeaker or amplified music permit to have a Fifth Avenue, you must get that from the police, right? And the police was ensuring that everything, because the police is the principal agency to ensure people respect the law and
Law.
persons
Yeah.
within the law. Okay, so it shouldn't be echo shouldn't be separate, or to get a not echo to get an your permit to operate a loudspeaker or to operate to play music in public, it shouldn't be separate and apart from you getting your permit from the alcohol, to get your liquor license, and to get your food, your clearances from the
Yeah.
Ministry of Health and all that. And that is why I think it's very important that, and I said ecosystem earlier, because we are all stakeholders. You do not want one working against the other. You want one
Yeah.
working under
Well,
the same.
I must confirm that from since the police was brought up to speed, I know for sure they have that when you upload in your permit here in St. Kitts and Nevis, you have to upload that license as well.
Well, the police
Now,
cannot do that anymore.
so
They have been, the police cannot do that right now, and that cannot be in the best interest of the creatives. At the end of the day, every agency have their work to do, and their mission and the mandate. But here's what: all must be in the best interest of what the greater good of the country or the creatives. For Echo, we are a non-profit. All the monies that we collect on behalf of our members and the creatives, we take off our admin expenses, and all the rest of the monies is distributed. So
Yeah.
if right now we are trying we kind of loggerheads, if you want to put it that way, and we're trying to meet at least good sense, let good sense prevail.
Yeah.
In the sense that we're trying to do this whilst other territories around the world have recognized the need for quotering system. So there are territories that say 60% of the music must be the local music.
Yeah.
And guess what? They are the territories that excel with the orange economy. They are the ones, because the money stays there, it recirculates, and it happens. So in all what that we are doing, I am urging the authorities, and maybe the Attorney General in particular, I could call him out, to do this in the best interest and possibly advise the government in the best interest of the creatives and the wider good of ensuring that we are compliant and we're within it. Because if we do not get our licenses now, we don't have a choice but to report to our agencies that St. Kitts and Nevis is not compliant, and the shows. And I could guarantee you, my kind sir, that the big artists that are coming into St. Kitts and Nevis,
Yeah.
part of their agreement, the contractual agreement, would be that the show that they are performing at is copyright friendly, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah.
It's licensed. And if it is not so, I do not know how it's going to work. They would have to do it themselves. So at the end of the day, I am urging that whilst we are presenting our all the requirements, we would like for, as they've indicated, to expedite the permit or the compliance, and as well as to ensure that the upcoming festival is licensed.
Okay, we have about 3 more minutes to go. Any final word, and what, as I was always saying, what next now that you guys have, submit your paper? I think you guys just gonna be just waiting, and then, I would like to know what to expect.
Well, the mission continues. Just let me just say quickly, the mission continues in terms of ensuring that we are in good standing to ensure that we administer the rights on behalf of the creatives, our members, and by extension, our affiliates. So this is what we're going to do. We're just going to wait for the responses and for us to treat with it accordingly. We will not get into the back and forth. What we want to do is to maintain a high ground, a moral and professional high ground in terms of ensuring that we work within a legal framework. Okay, so I just want to say thank you for the opportunity, and you will be hearing more from us. So I leave the last words to the other individuals. Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome. Hey, Grace?
Yes, sir. I will continue to do what I do. And every single opportunity that I get, I always try to give somebody a bit of information about how this whole thing works. Doesn't matter who, right? Even if I go into the bank, I engage the teller in a conversation as to what the rights are. Maybe the bank might be having a TV on and there's something happening. So I explain to them. So I try as much as possible to get the information out. And I must say that I think that a lot of people now in St. Kitts and Nevis are taking a greater, getting a greater understanding of how this whole thing works. Compared to when I started this in 2016, I can actually see the difference. And what is happening is that people are looking at cases outside of St. Kitts and Nevis, and they're understanding them and coming and explaining the situations to me. And so that is how I know that they're understanding much more about copyright and copyright protection and the work of the creatives and protecting the creatives from infringement.
Yeah. Mr. Cotter?
Right. So I just want to say, ECHO is here to serve our members and all other rights holders. Always feel free to reach out to us. We are always willing to engage in conversations, be part of any webinars, seminars, conferences. We have the competence, we have the knowledge. As you could see with Grace especially, so we know what we're about, and we want to see a thriving industry, a thriving creative industry in St. Kitts and Nevis. So we are willing to be part of any discussions.
Okay, and thank you. And there you have it for this edition of Voices right here on winnfm 98.9 on the FM dial. We've been talking to the CEO of ECHO and also Grace. She's been putting in the work for over a decade or so, and it's always a pleasure to chit chat with you about copyright. I know that I'm rooting for this because I know it's going to structure the entertainment industry in St. Kitts and Nevis, and the orange economy is something that we need to build the legal way and the right way. So stick and stay with us. We have our headline news coming up shortly.